Oh, goody.
All right, what's up, everybody? It is Zombies here again, and today we have a little bit of an update on the Fighting Pit podcast. So we did record our episode for this week as usual. Went really well, had some great discussion, and unfortunately, due to some technical issues, the audio for that format of this week's episode just isn't really workable to be posted. There were, as you can see, we have a new microphone here, and this is actually going to go a long way in improving audio quality for sure. So that's a really big plus, but we are also dealing with some new technology here, and as is the case with new technology, sometimes it messes things up, and unfortunately we didn't catch that before recording this week, so got a little bit of surprise when we went to go do some editing. And the audio my audio was great and everything, but because of the computer, the way it was outputting the audio, it didn't output it through OBS when I record like it normally does. So unfortunately, messed up the audio. There wasn't really anything I could do to fix it. So instead, what we're doing is I'm just going to give you guys like a quick little too long, didn't read TLDR of what this week's episode was, because we do not have time to re-record it or anything like that and talk about the same stuff for another hour and a half. So instead, I'm going to give you guys the quick version for this week, and we will be back to our normally scheduled programming with episode 4 next week. But yeah, so what we talked about this week, basically meta talk. We've all been seeing a pretty wide variety of strategies, even some without Valeera. I think one of the best things about kind of the direction we've been seeing the meta go, and we all were kind of on the same page about this, is that it's really nice seeing a little bit more variety, not just in the starting lineups, but also in the benches. Because pre-patch, Karen Diablo Cookie was kind of like the end-all be-all bench, and it's not saying it's not good now or anything. It's still very good, but we are seeing a little bit more variety in terms of what we are seeing on the bench. So we're all pretty happy to see that. General overall thoughts on the meta. We talked about this for quite a bit, but in general, I think we're all in agreement that the meta change so far has been a mostly fun and positive experience, rather than compared to pre-patch. It's not to say pre-patch was bad or anything. And this patch certainly isn't without its like negatives or downsides too, but I think overall, at least the current sentiment from the three of us is that we are enjoying kind of seeing where this meta is developing and seeing kind of some nice new variety compared to before, where it wasn't a definitive rock, paper, scissors, but there were certainly like 3 top decks, and you really need to have game against at least 1 or 2 of them, otherwise your comp couldn't really do very much. And I'm sure that's still true in some cases with Valeera, because I'm sure there are some strategies she does shut down as well. And that's not to say there isn't potential problems with Valeera in the longer term. I do think one thing we mentioned was the coin flips can be a little bit unhealthy, and she does kind of enable more of those, at least in her current form. So that is one thing to kind of keep an eye on. But at least where we are right now, bit like over a week, maybe like a week and a half since we got Valeera, and so far we have all been having a lot of fun with it. The super spicy brew shout out for this week definitely goes to Earth Pianist for their build with, they were running a really, really cool bench comp where standard opener with, your Valeera, your Grom, and your Thrall that we've seen so much of, but on their bench they actually had a Diablo, Cookie, and Gul'dan. And that was, at least for me, the coolest comp I've seen this week. I really liked that. I thought Gul'dan was a meme, and then he wrecked me by using Apocalypse into Gul'dan's healing, which also gets boosted by the Apocalypse and heals your demons. So some really cool synergy there, and that's definitely a comp I want to try out soon myself. Another topic we are going to be talking about that we didn't talk about on this past episode, but we are going to talk about in a future episode, is going to be PvP player accessibility. I think that is an important topic for the community at large and the player base, and I think it's something we should be talking about more. So that's definitely going to be something we talk about more in the future, maybe when we have our first guest on the show. But speaking of PvP accessibility, do want to mention that the Fighting Pit's first community tournament is going to be going on December 18th. That is Saturday, and is going to be a week and a day from when this video has been posted, Saturday the 18th. And yeah, it's going to be really fun. The Pauper Open, basically how it's working is, if you're not familiar with Pauper from Magic, it is a format where only commons are allowed to be played. So we're doing our own little spin on that, where for the Mercenaries Pauper event, no legendaries are allowed and no Task 7 items are allowed. So I think that's going to change up the meta a lot, certainly from what we are seeing currently with all this Valeera and stuff running around. Well, Valeera is not allowed in this tournament, so because she's a legendary. So we'll have to see kind of how that meta changes and develops, and I'm really excited to see what kind of unique decks and lineups players end up bringing for that. We do have cash prizes for the top 4 winners, so definitely enter into that. There'll be more info on that coming throughout the week leading up to the event, but it should be a lot of fun, and I am really looking forward to it. And if you just want to watch the event rather than take part, we are going to be streaming it as well. I think we're going to be putting it up on Mullahoo's Twitch, as he's going to be one of our great casters for the event. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Be sure to tune in, check that out. Battlefly link will be in the description with more information. Now, one thing we also discussed a lot about this week was Vanessa. So I know we kind of put off our Vanessa discussion from last week, and I know we had some differing opinions initially. I know Tangster was really high on Vanessa. Mullahoo was kind of low on her initially, and I think I was a little bit more in the middle. And now I think that after us all seeing the changes to the meta with Valeera, it definitely kind of changed our opinions on the potential for Vanessa being viable, because when we looked at her before, when she was first kind of revealed, we were looking at it through kind of the lens of a very caster heavy meta, and right now we're in a very fighter heavy meta. And so being in a fighter heavy meta definitely makes things more it makes it a lot easier for Vanessa to potentially see play. So I'm really excited to see if she does end up seeing play. She did only launch 2 or 3 days ago, so unfortunately none of us have gotten to fully level up and use her in PvP yet. So right now it's more just theory crafting stuff, but hopefully for next week's episode we'll have a little bit more concrete information on Vanessa. Maybe we'll have seen some other people playing with her on ladder too. Hopefully, because she's a really cool card, and she's another free merc. So that's another option for the Pauper tourney, is now you got another merc. Even if you're, brand new to the game, free merc. I think that's great. I think hopefully we get some more stuff like that in the future. And we all also thought that the addition of Mercenaries content, as well as Battleground stuff, to the Tavern Pass was a pretty big win. Like, I think that's really great. Like we talked about a few episodes ago with the Invitational, I think it's really, really great when you can kind of support multiple game modes in something that was traditionally, in the past, only really relevant for Constructed, or more so kind of weighted towards Constructed. But now we're getting rewards for Mercenaries, we're getting rewards for Battlegrounds. It's really great seeing they're trying to kind of put something in there for everybody. And then the last thing we kind of ended on was Valeera changes. So our overall kind of thoughts on Valeera was that I don't think any of us think she is so busted that she needs like an emergency nerf, and we still don't know how nerfs are going to even be really handled in Mercenaries yet. It's kind of a wait and see thing. But I thought a fun question to end this week's episode would be if you had to change Valeera in some way. So let's operate under the assumption the devs want to change her in some way. Let's say they think she's overtuned and she needs to be changed in some way. What way would you change her? And we had some really cool ideas. I know Tangster brought up one that I hadn't thought of before, which is, and it's kind of a minor nerf, but I think it could still make a difference, is changing the way her stealth ability works. So currently, in its current form, once Valeera goes stealthed, even if it's on the turn she's attacking, that stealth speed up boost is immediate. So usually you'll have one character going first who won't be affected by it because you're comboing to get Valeera stealth to begin with, but your third character will actually get that speed boost immediately after she goes stealth. And it's kind of a minor thing, but I do think that would be kind of like a nice, more like soft change, rather than trying to like really nerf her hard. Do kind of small little change, kind of like we saw with the Karen change, where it's kind of a little bit smaller and not quite as like, doesn't fully change the character, right? But brings it a little bit lower down in power level. So I thought that was a really cool idea. Mullahoo mentioned kind of what I was thinking, which is maybe just a little bit of a reduction on the speed reduction that we get from her being in stealth. And he actually suggested a interesting thought where maybe lowering down the speed to like 2, but what if you made that speed like a permanent increase, kind of like how the Lich King is a permanent decrease. So I thought that was really cool. For me, mine was kind of simple. I was just thinking maybe just tone it down 1 or 2 speed for her stealth, because I don't think it's like game breaking, like destroying the format or anything in its current form, but I do think over the long term it does leave open potential for design problems. It's like you now have to design every 4 speed ability with the fact that that can be sped up to 0 speed, and I think that does get a little difficult for design stuff, but it all depends what they have in the works, right? Like, we know we have dragons potentially coming next month. So what if we get a Nozdormu dragon whose passive is, hey, your speed is flipped. So your fast moves go fast, or your fast moves go slow, and your slow moves go fast. That would be a really cool one, and I'm really like crossing my fingers that we get something like that, because I do think a Trick Room, which is what that's called in Pokemon with swapping the speeds, a Trick Room-esque mercenary would be really, really interesting, and kind of, it would bring a much needed downside to all the kind of upside that speed boost brings to the game, and I think we could use something like that, just something to make going later or going using slower speed abilities more beneficial. I think we already are seeing a little bit of that with like some of the designs with Sky Admiral Rogers. So I think we will get something like that eventually. But yeah, those are kind of the general overview of the things we talked about this week. Obviously, this is a super duper like short version TLDR because we don't have the full version sadly this week, but I still wanted to get something out there so you guys know what we talked about this week, because there were a lot of cool topics, a lot went on, and I'm sure we will have a lot more to talk about next week when people have had some time to level up some of the other mercenaries outside of Valeera, and leading up to the Pauper Open, seeing kind of what neat brews and ideas people have for that. But yeah, that's going to do it for this little half makeshift episode of the Fighting Pit. Hopefully back to our normal show next week, same time, same place. You can find it here on YouTube, on my channel, Zombies Go Nom Nom, or if you prefer getting your podcasts through other podcasting methods, we are on Apple, Spotify, and RSS feed. So check all those out. If you enjoyed it, remember to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.